We are those guys. You see these guys over there? Well, what about, don't forget those guys. I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always, Nick Ferguson, former 10-year NFL safety and the National Football League. He is itching to get to you on his Denver Broncos because he suited up. He made sure that they disposed of those Kansas City Chiefs. We'll get there momentarily. But first, Sunday Night Football, we're coming off the Detroit Lions falling to those pesky Philadelphia Eagles. That final score 16-9. Nick Ferguson, what is going on, my man? Week 11 almost in the books here.
Well, yeah, week 11 is almost in the books. And as it pertains to the Eagles and the Detroit Lions, the Eagles continue to soar, finding ways to win games. And I know it looks a lot different than it looked last season, but the only thing that matters, as they say, is the fact that you got the dub.
Well, I can think of this as one of two ways. Let's start with the Jared Goff situation here. Those allegations that, California guys can't deal with the environment and the harsh weather. You really couldn't prove that wrong today. And here I am complaining about rain in Southern California all weekend. Jared Goff had one of his worst performances playing in the cold, playing in the at the Lincoln Financial field there in Philadelphia. I don't know why I'm going full government on the Eagles Stadium. I think it was a sub 40% completion percentage, the worst of his career. And this Lions offense, just 9 offensive possessions, 5 of them resulting in a turnover on downs. This Eagles defense, again, they've allowed 2 touchdowns to the Lions and the Packers in their past 2 games. So really, as bad as the Lions offense has looked, I'm kind of giving credit to that Eagles defense. That's been the turnaround because A.J. Brown is definitely still going to be complaining tomorrow morning.
Oh, I mean, I expect him to. If he didn't complain, I would question what type of receiver are you? Because I know most teams don't want their receivers to complain because they say, well, that's not conforming to the team structure. But when you know that you are capable of helping your team in a magnitude of different ways, you want the ball, man. Look, it'd be
not for a lack of trying. It's just his longest completion, I think 7 catches. He had 12 yards from Jalen Hurts this evening.
Well, wouldn't you be upset too if you know that you are a perennial Pro Bowl type of player, but you're not putting up perennial Pro Bowl type of stats? Look, I experienced it here in Denver with Jerry Jeudy when he watched Justin Jefferson, he watched Jamar Chase, all those guys eat as wide receivers, but he wasn't involved in the Sean Payton's offense, and he took that to heart. I can totally understand. I'm. This is why I'm not an offensive player and I play defense because, I eat what I kill. So I chase guys for a living and I'm not really dependent on other positions to kind of help me out. But the Eagles get the win. And here's what we're seeing, Alex. When we look around the league, we're seeing more of a low scoring game. Like at the beginning of the season, there were a couple of teams here and there where we saw high scoring games, but now we're starting getting into the back half of the season where now you're playing more divisional matchup guys who you're going to face potentially in the playoffs, and you got to put your best foot forward. So we're seeing now smaller scores where those point totals are under 30 points.
Well, you want to tell me about the kind of Vic Fangio defense that forces the Lions to do that and those low point totals, those dink and dunks. I think Jared Goff maybe only had like 15 passes beyond the line of scrimmage tonight.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nature of what Vic Fangio does from a defensive standpoint. We watch the same defense kind of make, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense look like they were a JV squad. So defense is still king. I mean, we have so many people every single year talk to us in the pre-draft process and kind of hype up the quarterbacks. This league is overinflated with quarterback talk. It's often the defense that gets left out. Even your New England Patriots with Drake May. I mean, the defense, they play. Christian Gonzalez, had a couple of PBUs, but no one wants to talk about that. But this is where the defense gets a chance to show people what they can do. And defense, regardless of what they tell us, still wins championships.
Now, I would talk about the outlook for the NFC East after that Eagles victory. However, the Dallas Cowboys, 3-5-1, sit in second place. So let's go with the Lions' loss here. 6-4 knocks them out of first place in the North. They're now in third, considering what we saw the Chicago Bears do 19-17 over the Minnesota Vikings. Just an ugly performance from J.J. McCarthy. You want to talk about quarterback play? Maybe don't watch this game. Caleb Williams, meanwhile, maintaining the ship while Kyle Monangai finds the end zone. Look, overall balance in this Chicago's Bear defense has been leading the charge, much like we had with Philadelphia. I think they have the best turnover margin in the NFL. Kevin Byard, an NFL-leading 5th interception on this one. McCarthy's back-to-back picks, just absolute backbreakers. But I do think that, look, Chicago at 7-3, leading the NFC North in a total surprise as far as I'm concerned, but they seem to be, their defensive unit, looking much better than what we've seen from the Lions offense as of the last few weeks or so. Are they really in the driver's seat until these two teams meet each other? Oh, I don't know. How about week 18, final week of the season, Nick? We could be looking at the NFC North at stake.
Yeah, of course they're in the driver's seat, and I don't know about you. I would rather be behind the wheel than in the passenger seat or in the back seat. And this is where the Bears find themselves. And think about this. When was the last time we've seen the Bears in a position where, can we say at this point, they pretty much control their own destiny as long as, one, they stay healthy and they go out there and they win some of these ugly games. And
Yeah.
once again, we have entered the part of the football season where that is something that we're going to be saying a lot. Look at the ugly wins. That game was terrible. Like, think about the Monday Night Football game that the Packers just played against the Eagles. How ugly was that of a game? And I don't know about you. I know you a guy that maybe likes scoring the points, but with me being a defensive guy, I was okay with the baseball type of score. I love those types of games because these are the types of games that you're going to need to win to even put yourself in playoff position. But more importantly, Alex, these are the type of games you're going to need to win to move forward if you're trying to book your flight to Santa Clara Stadium in San Francisco.
Well, they do have the Niners coming up as well. It's kind of a brutal schedule. Meanwhile, the Lions get the friendly confines of home and have some more dome games, which will help out our guy, Jared Goff. But it was funny. You mentioned, when was the last time the Chicago Bears were in this kind of position in the driver's seat in the NFC North? And immediately I'm going to myself, come on, Nick, you know better. That Matt Nagy year wasn't that long ago. 18, 12, like, the double doink was, nearly a decade ago at this point. So it has been long missed for Bear fans. And look, the ability to run the football with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, I believe they had 39 rushes as an offense compared to just 32 pass attempts. That is sweet music to Nick Ferguson's ears with a balanced offense like that. And look, they let Minnesota back into this game, but they were able to shut the door. They got the go-ahead. They got the go-ahead field goal based on the kick return that set them up in advantageous field position. That's 3 phases to me. So look, we haven't done a lot of Bears talk for this pod. Not a lot of love for Chicago, but look, you rattle off these kinds of wins. They now have 7 of their last 8, Nick, after that 0-2 start. Again, getting blown out by 31 points the last time they faced Detroit. We're talking about a completely different scenario there in the North. And that's in part, Green Bay gets the job done against the Giants, just barely, but the NFC as a whole just completely wide open. You see me just pushing your Broncos further and further back in this pod as much as I can. I thought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had the NFC South pretty much wrapped up. They opened up 5-1. Here they sit 6-4, going 3 quarters against the Buffalo Bills and then realizing, oh no, we got to defend Josh Allen for 4 quarters, 60 minutes. He just went Super Saiyan. He was incredible. Three touchdowns in the air, 3 on the ground. This Buffalo offense is back on track, scoring 40 again, which they haven't done since Carolina nearly a month ago.
Well, I would just kind of put my brakes on the fact of saying that the Bills they bounce back. They're back to who they were. No, we need more of a sample size in order to determine that.
Well, please enlighten me, because 44 points is great. I understand it's just the second time they've done it. Josh Allen was an MVP because he had, 6 touchdowns against the Rams in a loss last year. But I'd stand to reason that this is one of the better wins that they've had against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, probably one of the better wins they've had against the Buccaneers. But remember, this is a team that's coming off a loss to the Miami Dolphins that I don't believe
Yeah,
anyone saw that
right.
coming. So they wanted to take out that anger and that frustration on the Buccaneers. But also keep this in mind, Alex. We're talking about a Buccaneers team that's depleted from a wide receiver
Yep,
standpoint. So
yep.
did this Buccaneer team go in to give the Bills their best shot? No, they did not, but you play the teams that you need to play. And this is why I'm saying, hey, listen, after a couple of losses with the Bills, they need to get back to showing they are truly a for real team and they're just not a regular season team because they need to prove that they are a postseason team, something they haven't done over the past couple of years.
I feel you, Nick. Week 11, Buffalo Bills, you're just hitting the snooze button because we've seen it before. We don't have to spend too much time on it. I did bring up the perspective of the NFC South because Carolina now, just a half game back, which is a great story. They're 6-5. It's, I think, the latest they've had a winning record going back. Oh gosh, it's been quite a while, maybe since the Cam Newton years,
Yeah.
and it's a really good story because Rico Dowdle continues to be the point of attack on that offense, and Bryce Young. I mean, that fourth quarter, they go the length of the field. I think what was it? They were trailing. They were trailing the Falcons. It's beyond the 2-minute warning, and they've got. I have to pull up the play-by-play because it was such an impressive. Yeah, the 9 play 65-yard drive that takes a minute and a half. So we're beyond the 2-minute warning, and it's 3rd and 4. They're trailing the Falcons, and Bryce Young just completes 3 consecutive passes. Dowdle steps out of bounds, initially ruled a touchdown. You thought that was it right there. So after those 3 completions, he sets up Teteroa McMillan, his second touchdown to go ahead. Falcons tie it up, and then the Panthers take over in overtime. I've just been really impressed with their commitment to the running game. However, Rico Dowdle doesn't really get Atlanta's prepared for him, let's say. Bryce Young has to drop back 45 times, 31 completions, career high 448 yards, 3 tutties. It's just been really impressive seeing Bryce Young step up when needed. It hasn't been often, but again, much like the Bills conversation, it's a blip. You need more of a sample size, but maybe Carolina is finally putting the pieces together. They can win football games without Rico Dowdle being the only reason that they can move the ball on offense.
Well, I was really happy with what I was seeing from the Carolina Panthers, I guess, so far this season, because when we think about Bryce Young, how he was being written off, and the fact that, well, he is not an NFL type quarterback, he's a small guy. But to see that, hey, listen, he just kept his head down, he just continued to work. And the Carolina Panthers organization with Dave Canellis at the helm showed as though they got a lot of faith and confidence in it because it looked like a point earlier in the season that the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, was going to eventually take over this team. But now it seems as though with the way that he's playing right now, and he was dropping a couple of dimes in that game against the Falcons, and Rico Dowdle, having him as your running back, that changes so much for Bryce Young, where he doesn't have to feel as though he has all the pressure on him, and he has to go out there and just throw for a godly amount of numbers. But now
Uh-huh.
it's somewhat of a balanced attack. He can play calm, he can play reserve, and then take the shot. So it's going to make things very interesting. But I will be remiss if I didn't say this. Well, think about the fact of when we think about Matt Rule when he was there, and he
Yeah.
had both Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, and neither of those guys were playing how Bryce Young is playing right now. So it is very interesting. The NFC is a very interesting conference. The NFC South is a very interesting conference within itself. So could we say that this this division could
Yeah.
come down to which quarterback plays the best between Bryce Young and Baker Mayfield?
12 career wins for Bryce Young. Guess how many of them have ended with a fourth quarter or overtime game-winning drive, Nick?
I would say what, 2?
10. 10 of his 12
10.
career wins.
Wow.
Carolina constantly putting him in a position to have the ball last and score. And again, 12 wins in his third NFL season, including time getting benched by Andy Dalton. Not great. However, as I said, when they need him to step up, he is certainly capable of doing it.
Yeah.
We'll round out the NFC. We got to hit the West. I mean, we were just pumped for the Seahawks and the Rams. And I think the difference in this one, 4 red zone trips for the Rams, 3 touchdowns, 3 red zone trips for the Seahawks, 3 field goals.
Yeah, you know what? I was really intrigued by this particular matchup because both teams run a similar offense with Clint Kubiak as OC for the Seattle Seahawks, and you have Sean McVay for the Rams, and then you talk about both of these quarterbacks. They both had their challenges, both physically and from a production
Yeah.
standpoint all season long. And I was like, okay, well, here's where the rubber meets the road. One of these teams is going to separate themselves as being a contender. The other is going to separate himself as far as being a pretender. And, the Rams came out and they really proved as though they are contenders. They are pushing
Yeah.
the envelope once again with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. They have a great coaching staff, great running game. And I was interested to see how Sam Darnold was going to perform, especially after really putting up so many points against Washington. And we know that Washington Commanders have their deficiencies both on offense and defense, but what can you do or what will you do against another team that has either equal coaching and equal footing as far as personnel? And we saw exactly how that panned out.
I mean, 4 picks, the Rams, played clean enough, but the 4 picks on top of just settling for those field goals, pretty much just everything. Like the Rams came out and after scoring 14 points, it seemed like it was absolutely insurmountable. And it was funny. I happened to be driving around listening to the Rams radio broadcast. They go into halftime. Stafford has completions to 7 different receivers. And it wasn't until later in the second half that Puka's the only one that separates. He ends up with 7, I believe. Devontae had a beautiful back shoulder. 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. That's his day. So they go jumbo against Seattle. They get 3 tight ends involved, and they ran the ball when they could, but obviously having to rely on Matthew Stafford's arm to get them ahead. Just 8-2 is legit. Seattle at 7-3. A potential injury to Gray Zabel, the rookie guard who had been outstanding for them, could in fact be a backbreaker. Like we saw Sam take a ton of pressure, didn't allow the sack, but was forced into some real bad throws. A couple drops as well, but Seattle being, tried to commit to the run, didn't quite get the production they were looking for. Although shout out Kenneth Walker, finally getting something done. 16 carries, 67 yards, and a tutty. Again, 2 points in a 21-19 game, but there was a lot more separation between these teams atop the NFC West. And to round out the division, how about Brock Purdy coming back? 44 points, I believe it was, that your Niners had against Arizona. The final score was 41-22, and Jacoby Brissett in a loss out here playing point guard, 47 of 57 for 452 yards, Nick.
Yeah, that's a lot of passing attempts. But remember, there was a conversation a couple of weeks ago, I know on social media, and yeah, that's a great place to kind of get your conversations for the week.
Everyone's allowed a platform. It's the best possible thing for everybody.
But yeah, there was a lot of conversation, even here in Denver, where it was just like, well, Kyle Shanahan is going to be faced with a conundrum because he's got to choose between Mac Jones, a guy he loved in the
Yeah, sure.
and Brock Purdy. And I'm like, whoa. Don't see one where, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch say, you know what? We're going to go with Mac Jones over the guy who was Mr. Relevant, who, oh, by the way, took us to a Super Bowl, and we were a couple of plays from beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they're going to do that, but you can see, obviously, for all those individuals who are rooting for that, how this offense worked with, Brock Purdy under center opposed to Mac Jones. And no disrespect to Mac Jones, but it has been proven that it is a proper recipe when you have Brock Purdy under center.
Yep. The Cardinals, as depleted as they were with essentially no running backs. Again, this isn't Bam Knight or Amari DiMercado erasure, right. But no Marvin Harrison Jr. The balls were funneled to Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, which is what they should be doing. And
Mhm.
look, the Niners are just efficient. They're taking advantage of, short field scenarios like, the opening drive of the game. Like they get down to the 1 yard line, on the opening kick, and it just,
Yeah.
you go from there. They just never really looked back, building up the lead in the second half, because it's a 2-possession game, and then they just storm ahead. So, look, we've got the top of the NFC right now, 8-2 Rams, 7-3 Seahawks, 7-4 San Francisco 49ers. And then there's the Cardinals at 3-7. But
Yeah.
that clearly looks like the division to beat, the NFC West. And you could say the same in the AFC West, Nick Ferguson. We'll switch things to the AFC now. And your Denver Broncos, again, they've got these 1-score wins. They just pull it out. It doesn't matter if it's Vegas. It doesn't, whoever their opponent is, they're going to escape with some kind of late kick. But hey, they are the second team that hits 9-2 for the amount of love that we gave the New England Patriots, despite me
Yeah.
separately. I will allow you to do the same for your Denver Broncos.
Well, unlike you, I'm not going to take any victory laps, and I'm not going to even strut around like a peacock and give my best peacock
It's the
impression.
Chiefs, Nick. It's not the
Yeah,
Raiders.
I get it. This was something that the organization really needed. Sean Payton, head coach, needed this kind of boost of confidence. But more importantly, Bo Nix, who has been taking it on the chin, locally and nationally,
Sure,
from a different guys. I'm gonna post a video later where there's a guy who used to play for Sean Payton, or he was on a roster that Sean Payton actually coached, who has two different takes on Bo Nix after two different uh, outcomes. You got to keep those receipts. But yeah, I mean,
thanks, Robert Saleh.
yeah, so I was happy to see the Broncos actually go out and play well. And leading up to the week, there was concerns over J.K. Dobbins, whether the team's going to put him on
Yeah,
IR. They eventually put him on IR. So the question was, how was a team going to generate some kind of rushing attack when they had J.K. Dobbins and they didn't really use him
yeah,
in the rushing attack like they were supposed to? So Sean Payton found different ways to kind of get people involved. But the return of Marvin Mims proved to be the biggest piece because they sorely missed him, because he was one
yeah,
of those guys who flipped the field for them from a special team standpoint and put him on the short field. And he did it again, but this offense is still having its issues. Yeah, you praise the team. They won the game. It's another fourth quarter comeback for Bo Nix. But once again, we saw issues. The Broncos had trips down in the red zone and came away with field goals. You can't continue to do that and expect to win in the Super Bowl or win enough games to get you and put you in that conversation. So all in all, great win. And unlike most people, because I can tell you, soon as the game was over, Alex, I'm listening to radio, I'm watching the Twitter feeds. Everyone, man, great comeback by Bo Nix and Sean Payton and all of this
yeah.
stuff. And somehow I was sitting there. I'm like, I'm waiting. Someone's going to say something and someone's going to mention it. And it never came. And what I'm talking about is the validation of this defense and how they continue to allow the offense to stay in the game so they can have these fourth quarter comebacks.
Well, an 8-game winning streak. They are, I think, what, perfect against, well, no, they still have a lot of the division ahead of them. They still have all the other division games.
Yeah,
They've played 3, they've got 3 to go. The Chiefs, meanwhile, sit 5-5, and I thought the schedule was fascinating. And it's not just to gloss over Denver. I mean, they're going to take the week off before they go to our nation's capital, or really, the state of Virginia,
yeah,
to take on the Commanders. But the Chiefs host the Colts. They go to Dallas. They host the Texans. They host the Chargers at the Titans, and then they get Broncos Raiders to wrap things up. Sitting 5-5. I mean, they are in a hole for the division that they have not lost in nearly a decade. And look, if it weren't for the LA Chargers imploding, and we'll get there in just a moment, they'd look like they'd have no shot at a playoff spot. But I think they're in a good spot. Obviously, they've got the Denver game, but they have 3 games against teams that have 3 wins apiece or less. So I'm a lot more comfortable, and it's not just the fact that, oh, it's Kansas City. They still haven't figured out how to throw a deep ball in 3 years. And I just think that they play the schedule ahead of them, and they've had the harder piece of it first, but they need to be able to win those one-score games, right? 12-0 a year ago, 0-5 this time around. So they're missing a running game. They can't throw the deep ball consistently. And that's, look, you want to talk sample size, that's 3 years of this at this point. So I want to, I want to make fun of somebody that was on top for a really long time. I don't understand the perspective of doing that during the Patriots dynasty, but now that the Chiefs are down there, let's make sure we do
Uh,
that to them. I just don't really know how it really plays out the rest of the way. Just feeling a little optimistic, just based on that head coach, that quarterback, and that defense.
Well, I mean, everyone will try to kick the Kansas City Chiefs while they're down. Now, obviously, with being 5-5, the chances of them winning the AFC West and regaining their crown, to me, I think that ship has sailed. Right
Yeah,
now, I think Andy Reid is telling his team, "Look, we didn't get blowed out. We didn't blow them out. There still are some things that we need to correct." And when you look at Patrick Mahomes, there was about 3, 4 explosive plays that he didn't connect on
yeah.
that would have definitely changed the game. So in their mind, they're still in the mix. So for them, it's about getting in. They have to fight to get in because now they would have lost to the Denver Broncos, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Buffalo Bills all. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot one. And the LA Chargers, right? Which is in their conference, and
Yeah.
most of those teams are within their division. And this is a place that Kansas City hasn't been in years. So it's kind of new to them and their fan base, and they're kind of shocked, like, oh my God, this can't be happening to us. And it's like, oh yes, every dog has his day, and the sun is shining on your ass right now.
Well, they sit the 9 seed, so they're just 3 spots out. I mean, or 2 spots out, right? We go 7 teams now, with the Chargers and the Jaguars ahead of them, and that's because a 35-6 drubbing will round out the AFC West. I just want to go quickly here because the Chargers are very self-explanatory. Nick Ferguson,
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, wow, 18 pass attempts, only sacked twice, all things considered. No, the reality is, he was pressured on half of his dropbacks, 50%, 5-0, 50. They benched Mekhi Becton in the second half. Trevor Penning, who wasn't good enough to start at tackle and even was getting benched at guard in New Orleans, is forced to start at left tackle in LA, and this is unfortunately what they get. No time to pass. They average less than 3 yards a carry, and that's hugely boosted by Justin Herbert leading the way at 21 rushing yards. Kamani Vidal getting hurt. This team, it is really hard to see a team that is going to compete given they get the Eagles, the Chiefs, and your Broncos to round out the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad and unfortunate for Coach Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. I mean, don't cry for me, Argentina, because I'm not going to cry for him. But it's one of these things that happens due to injuries, and they've been decimated by injuries. And when your team has been, you got a mass unit of guys, it really affects how you operate, especially if a lot of those guys, in this case with the Chargers, are on the offensive side of the ball. You
Yeah.
you have protection issues, and it's like how many of the running backs that you're going to have to go through that is going to go down. So for me, I'm thinking we need to get Serrano and Joe Boo and some Sage and kind of run through that locker room because it's just like who else is going to get hurt?
Yeah. Look, that's one thing, but the Jags could come in saying the same thing. They lost Bashal Tutin. They came into this game without Brian Thomas, and in a way, like it was almost beneficial because there's no one alpha that commands the football that you need to. In the back of your mind, Trevor Lawrence is like, well, let me see. Do I have to force the ball this way? Like, no. But the
Yeah.
other thing too is they get the 7-0 lead after they score on their second drive. And Nick, look, you're talking about a balanced offense. This one's going to make you sweat. 22 Trevor Lawrence pass attempts, 47 rushes, 192 yards on the ground, and 4 TDs. That's winning football.
Mm. Well,
Look, and it's the defense too, right? They're the ones that I talked on Remember Thursday? I said this game's interesting to me. I thought it'd be a good game. I was wrong, but I was glad that I talked about it because the emphasis that Jacksonville has on forcing turnovers, getting to the passer, Josh Hines Allen, getting the Jags franchise sack record passing. Tony, don't tell me that I sang Unbreak My Heart Brackers.
hmm
Shout out Jags legend. I'm just kind of thrilled that they have this ability to turn it on and the offense can help hold hands with the defense, and they have this kind of three-phase victory over the Chargers. Look, I'm not saying that the second best team in the AFC South is a legit contender, but
yeah.
for a team that mortgaged their future, I'm glad that the head coach has them with some early returns in the win column.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest stats that I'm looking at, and you just brought it up, 47 rushing attempts that you gave up for 192 yards. That tells me a couple of things. That tells me that the Chargers offense didn't move the ball down the field with efficiency enough to convert third downs
No,
to
it
keep
was
the
8
drive
first
moving.
downs, by the way.
Right. So now you're giving the ball back to an opponent that's saying, you know what? We don't have two of our, quality wide receiver. You mentioned Thomas and you mentioned also, well, not you didn't mention, but also you think about Travis Hunter, who's injured. So you have Jacoby Myers, who you traded for. So now he is your leading receiver. So you say,
Yep.
look, we now have to lean on the run game with Travis Etienne and make sure that we shorten the game and make life easier for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. And I don't know if I've ever seen a game, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where one team had 47 rushing attempts. That's ball control offense. And your twin Liam Coleman, he's like, okay, you know what? ETN rushed for a buck 50 against the Raiders. This is
Yep.
going to be our MO. And if we're going to win games, and knowing as though Jacksonville, they're going to have to go on the road, and the places they go, it's going to be cold. They're trying to lean on their defense and their run game, and they're trying to start that trend right now.
Yes. And again, you've got like Buffalo and Seattle that average 30 carries a game, and the Jags just pulled off 47. So
Wow, that's
very
cool.
impressive. We're going to round things out. Again, we are those guys. Make sure you grab us on YouTube if you want to see the video, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to round things up quickly with the AFC North because it's a big jumbled mess now, but Pittsburgh taking care of business against Cincinnati. Fool me once, AFC North. You go back-to-back opening drives with the 40-year-old Joe Flacco and the 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers scoring touchdowns, and I'm thinking, oh, man, we're going to have a high-scoring game here. They don't score again. We don't see another touchdown until the fourth quarter, but Pittsburgh pulls away despite injuries to Aaron Rodgers, injuries to Jalen Warren, and Jalen Ramsey getting kicked out of the game. Jamar Chase says he didn't spit. We got it on tape. That guy spit at Jalen Ramsey. And then meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens win in spite of Shedeur Sanders making his NFL debut. Where do you want to start in the AFC North, Nick Ferguson?
Well, I'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals because remember, these two teams face each other on the Thursday night game, and it
Yeah.
was a hell of a game, and Cincinnati was able to kind of, pull it out.
Yeah.
But when you think about this Pittsburgh team and these two quarterbacks playing against one another, uh, obviously you got to think, okay, how long can you actually do this if you are Mike Tomlin and knowing as though Aaron Rodgers seemed to have somewhat of a wrist injury. I
Yep.
think that's what
Wrist
they're calling.
fracture, I think is the word.
Okay, so now you're saying, okay, well, is that season-ending wrist fracture? And if so, then Mason Rudolph would come in, and I, I don't know if I really trust Mason Rudolph to be the quarterback to
How much
lead us.
worse could it honestly be? Like the Jalen Warren is a bigger one for me because if they lose one of their best weapons running the football, that's what Pittsburgh wants to do. They want, Kyle Duggar going with that pick six, and they want the offense to just not turn the football over. So Mason Rudolph is great, having been in that organization, asked to start before, he can do it again, but who cares? If they can't run the football because they don't have their best rusher and their best pass catching back, like that's the bigger indictment on that Steelers team.
Well, once again, the Steelers have been known to do two things and two things well over their team's history: play great defense, run the ball. So this will now only put more pressure on their defense to elevate their level of play. So now you not only have to get stops if you're the
Yeah.
Pittsburgh defense, now we need you to get turnovers, and to add insult to injury, we need you to score as well. Can you do that for us?
Can you do that for us? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, again, they go to Chicago, and then sure enough, they get 2 weeks after that the Baltimore Ravens, who get the win over the Browns. Defensive Player of the Year is over. It's Myles Garrett putting up these kinds of numbers for a team that is forced to be out there on the defense constantly. Dylan Gabriel suffers a concussion. I mentioned Shedeur Sanders comes in. Shout out your guy. I was having a grand old time when you mentioned Jerry Jeudy
Yeah.
with his time with the Denver Broncos. That 3rd and 10 out of nowhere. I mean, shout out Shedeur Sanders, way to throw that ball into traffic, and then Jerry Jeudy bailing your ass out. Love to see that. Love to see it. But again, given the NFL's current concussion protocol, we'll see Shedeur Sanders play. I don't, there's a reason why Kevin Stefanski, who is competing for his job, has not put Shedeur Sanders out there unless 3 other quarterbacks got out of the way. The only other option is to guarantee $100 million, $200 million, $400 million to Deshaun Watson if he were to play and get hurt. So, as far as playing within structure and not putting too much on your depleted offensive line, if the Browns offense is willing to give up 2 or 3 drives a game because Shedeur Sanders runs 15 yards behind him in the pocket and gets sacked, then so be it. I'm excited to see some big plays, which he is certainly capable of. Just needs to have everything go right. All the switches flipped. It's a National Football League program, even though it's Cleveland. Can you tell I'm not very optimistic, but I'm just kind of initialing, dotting my name next to his big play ability, just in case 1 or 2 of those happen between now and whenever he finds the bench again before the end of the year.
Well, the fact that Kevin Stefanski was non-committal says a lot. And I mean, once again, it doesn't make a difference, to be totally honest and fair, who's the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, whether it's
Yeah.
Shedeur, whether it's Dylan Gabriel. They really don't stand a chance, because for me, the organization hasn't done the right thing by their quarterbacks and personnel in the past. I mean, did I really think that they were going to do it this year? I hoped, but we're seeing as though this organization, they're used to one thing, and it's losing. And that's what they say. Bad teams find
Yeah.
ways to lose games. And it's unfortunate that either of these young quarterbacks find themselves in this situation, because they're going to struggle. I mean, you just mentioned, Shedeur Sanders retreating, they're trying to lose yards to gain yards, but who's he throwing to? Can any guys get open? What's the pressure rate that either he or Dylan Gabriel is going to be under, man? So at this point, it's like, nah, I don't want to play because I may get hurt because you guys are not doing the right thing. And then people say all these negative things about me, but I know Shedeur wants to play. And I don't know who next week's opponent is. I hope he gets an opportunity. And hopefully the offensive coordinator, Kevin Stefanski, I'm talking to you, that he does something to help his young quarterback out.
He is Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. We've got one game tomorrow night. We've got the Dallas Cowboys, the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, as far as this game is concerned, the Raiders have never been given more points from the Vegas guys. 23.5 points they're projected. The top over-under on week 11, 50.5 points. Nick, I want to see 155 points. Neither of these defenses really impressed me. These guys are all auditioning for their next job. With the exception of a Quinnen Williams. Like, we'll see how that debut goes for Dallas, if they can plug up that Raiders front and Ashton Genty trying to get his work in. I'm looking for points. I don't know what you're looking for in Monday Night Football, Nick, but I have to believe that at this point, given the continuity on that team, plus the injection of a Quinnen Williams, I think Dallas has the edge in this one.
I think it's safe to say that Dallas does, even though both of these teams right now defensively are at the bottom statistically. I'm going to lean more towards Dallas defense. playing better or having better production, even though they're going to have to make sure they know where Brock Bowers is located. But looking at the arsenal of weapons that Dak Prescott has, I mean, I'll say this. I don't see or foresee the Dallas Cowboys offense producing like the Broncos did last week on Thursday night. I think we're going to see more points on behalf of the Dallas Cowboys offense.
On behalf of Nick Ferguson, I mean, our defensive guy is pushing for points, so I'm into it. I'm Alex Hardy. You can find those guys, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back for Week 12, plus a recap of what we just saw is today, but we want to make sure we highlight Monday Night Football, plus what to look for in Week 12. Nick, you get to kick your feet up, at least for your Denver Broncos, so we'll really get in depth on some of the other teams. So until next time, Nick Ferguson, what do you have to say to the people?
Make sure you get your required 8 hours of sleep.
All right, I got to go. I got to start now.
Start now.